thinking about it. She would say, okay,
because you're on the show, everyone can see and hear you. If I had a link, that would even be even better.
we are
Um,
live right now. So welcome.
awesome. Hi.
Hi, Dr. Neosho. We're so excited to have all of you kind of come in and get to witness this conversation as part of the Magdalene Interview Series. So I'm Melisa Keenan, the host of this show. And I have with me today Dr. Neosho Ponder. And we're so excited to just get to have you on and get to hear your perspective in relationship to the Magdalene. I created this interview series because I'm also leading a pilgrimage to the south of France. We're calling it the Magdalene Pleasure Pilgrimage, Remember Your Wild Roots. And it's in September, and, for 8 days to go and kind of deepen into our own relationship with ourselves. It's actually a pilgrimage in devotion to self, not necessarily in devotion to Mary Magdalene. And so that means everybody's showing up with different perspectives. And so I'm excited to hear today your perspective. You want to tell us a little bit about how the Magdalene has affected your faith journey? I know that's a big part of your life.
Yeah, it is actually. My first name is pronounced with an A at the end, so it's pronounced Neosha. My mother is very interesting. Yeah, so it's Neosha, not Neosho, but I'm named after a city in Southwest Missouri.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, my mom got my name off a road sign, and she chose to pronounce it a little differently. And I'm okay with you calling me just Neosha. Like, you don't have to be formal at all. I understand in all my stuff you see stuff, but it's fine. So the idea of this conversation was really cool, and Mary Magdalene, I personally just dubbed her the original ride or die chick. And if you don't know what ride or die chick means, Google is your friend. But we're gonna, jump into it a little bit more once we get into the questions. But she's my favorite figure in the Bible, and yeah, so I look forward to us talking more because I've had conversations about this conversation with people, and yeah, so I'm looking forward to more.
So cool. And why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Great. I am originally from Kansas City, Missouri. I live in Washington, D.C. I am in between full-time jobs, but I'm an adjunct professor. I teach communication courses on the undergrad and graduate level. I'm actually preparing for this graduate class that starts this week. But I also do consulting. So I do anything from communications, consulting, media, outreach. Goodness gracious. I do a little bit of design, like on Canva and stuff, and I have a portfolio on my website, and also do like trainings and public speaking prep and things like that. Most things within the realm of communications. Besides, I don't like to write. I'm not a writer. I know I wrote a book, and I know I wrote a dissertation, but those were specific purposes.
Yeah.
I'm also neurospicy, so I was informally diagnosed with ADHD at 34 while writing my dissertation. And then at 39, I was finally formally tested, and my entire life made sense. Wow. So so I have adult ADHD, the inattentive kind, and I take Adderall, but I also pray. And as soon as I get a job, I can afford a therapist. So here we are. I don't have children or anything either. So don't have a husband, don't have children. I'm dating, and that's it. So I have nephews and a niece, and everyone else's kids are my nephews and nieces as well. And that's just kind of how I live my life.
Oh, that's beautiful. I relate to the ADHD journey. I'm in the middle of my testing right now.
10 hours. Well, if they do it right, 10 hours. Some people do 3 hours. I'm like, what? How do you know everything by 3 hours? But yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, we're like at this stage, and I'm like, well, this is very like telling. He's this paperwork, this last form that I'm supposed to fill out, and he's already sent it to me twice, and I don't know where it is.
Wow.
I'm like, well,
And at the end of the day, he's just gonna, like, if you're doing it in person, he just have to give it to you when you get there, because
I
that's
said, I'm
just
gonna have to just go. Well, I like that was it. I was my last step. I'm gonna have to go back in and go in person. But
yeah. I went in person in 2019 because this was before the pandemic, and I did 2 hour. Oh, I didn't. I did 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours a week for like a month or something like that. And it was a residency program, so I was lucky because I had just gotten back on my feet. And I guess I failed to mention I'm entering my 10th year of breast cancer survivorship, and so I had to go through breast cancer treatment and everything before I could even formally be diagnosed. I learned about my executive function issues, and how to different little tools that I do use, but I'm still like learning. Being neurospicy is a gift and a curse, I think. So yeah.
Oh, and I think too, this is it interweaves with our conversation because it's this element of like being able to advocate for yourself, being able to get the support you need so that you
Hmm.
can in the missions that you're meant to be in, connected in the ways that you feel called to be. So, well, good. Well, then we have this in common, and we'll be neurospicy together on.
Yes.
What do you feel like sticks out to you about Mary Magdalene?
I love her loyalty, her ability to, from what I know of her story, she came back from the fringes, of society, of the world, like, and there's controversy, if you will, around her story, and I even brushed up on it because I read part of my Lent journey. I'm reading about a different woman every day. Now I've missed some days because I left the book at the house, as I told you earlier. But I caught up, and then I said, let me jump to Mary Magdalene, just so I will not just go off of my memory and my feelings, because sometimes that can cloud what has been researched and written, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, she's arguably, a former prostitute. She, they say in the Gospels that she was delivered from 7 demons. In this book, this is called Women of the Bible for Women of Color. It was a gift from my auntie years ago, but have never read all through it before. And but you know, it's not really proven that she was a prostitute. And
Right.
that's something that, I don't know. The Bible was written by man anyway, but then, and then passed down, through oral histories. And I think that that's a horrible, misconception, especially when you see that she is the first female apostle, and Jesus trusted her even with his resurrection. Like, that was a big deal. And I just feel like, wherever he went, she went. She didn't have to be a disciple. She carved her own lane, and she's mentioned more, for her works and everything. I want to say they said she's mentioned like 14 times in the Gospels, which is is huge. And her role in just, not only being a disciple after his ascension, and still going out into the world, that was huge to spread the way they all did. Let's be clear, but you don't see her book, right? As one of the Gospels, or even in the New Testament. So you don't have, like Paul has Philippians.
Yeah.
You don't have anything, and it's like I I just believe that that was just, to me, the I lost the word, chemo brain sometimes 10 years later, but that misogyny, sorry, that's misogyny, in a way. And but for all the women to stay outside the tomb, and for Mary to be the one looking in there, and
Mm-hmm.
for him to appear before her, and some books say that it was an angel, not Jesus, but I
Right.
say that her being with him
Yeah.
during that time, walking with him and the disciples, and being there, even for Mary and Martha, and when they lost Lazarus, like being there in all these important stories
Yeah.
throughout the New Testament, I think is powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for sharing all that. How do you feel like that has affected you personally in your journey?
Mm. I'm a resilient person. I didn't know this until I was diagnosed with breast cancer, but I'm a resilient person, and I am an extrovert, yes. But I've never been the kind of I've never met a stranger, by the way. Just got that from the little old man, my father. So it's genetic, but I have never been the person who needs my own book, right? I don't need accolades or acknowledgement for things that I do, because my gratitude and my I guess my feelings of
Like
it'll come to
accomplishment
me.
or something?
Yeah, but also when people want to be put on pedestals and all that, like I feel gracious, and I love to see the results of my work. I don't really need accolades. That's what I was trying to get to. I
Yeah.
don't need the accolades. Like, I didn't know while in grad school that I would hate being called Dr. Ponder as much as I do. I don't like it. My students call me Dr. P because they can't say ponder. I don't know why they can't say ponder. It's in the dictionary, and they put a U in the middle, they put an S on the end. It's a whole thing. So they just call me Dr. P for the most part. Um, but yeah, I don't need to be revered. I want to be respected, but I don't need the reference that comes with, all your stuff put on display. I
Yeah.
don't need that. So, and I like that about her too, that she made a huge impact on our faith, how we walk, how we journey, without having her own book in the Bible. I think that's powerful.
Yeah, it is so interesting. And it's like it is that we get to hold both perspectives, right? That there's this element of her voice being kind of, yeah, being a secondary character, if you will.
Mhm.
And but then there's also this side of like, and maybe that was also a result of misogyny and erasure. And so we
Mhm.
get to hold both, because both are true, but whether they
Yeah.
contradict or not, it's like we don't really know what the history is. And
Mhm.
so I love that about Mary, because for me it feels like it holds up a mirror to those parts inside of me, the parts
Mhm.
that play with this, like, am I okay when I'm being asked to be a secondary character? Am I a secondary character? Is that my role in this situation? Am
Mhm.
I allowing myself to be a secondary character when really what is being
Mhm.
asked is that I'm the first person? Like we play
That
with
part, right? Yeah.
we do. Uh and then the other side of like what forces are actually like demanding I put myself as a secondary character when it's not necessarily accurate, or really not my truth. The
Mhm.
systems in place that are rooted
Yeah.
in misogyny. And something that I also, felt was important with this interview series is because we see this erasure of her power, but we
Mhm.
also see an erasure of her color. And
Well, that's everybody in the Bible, in my opinion. But that's another story.
yeah, right? I mean, it's crazy. It's like, to me, it's like if we have a conversation about Mary and we also don't talk about lineage, we're doing a huge disservice, because there's controversy even about where she came from.
Mhm.
So therefore, we're just going to assume she was white. And I don't think that's right.
I don't know any white people in that part of the world. I
Right.
don't know any white people. Let's be very clear now, okay? If we're gonna do labels, there's no white people in that part of the world. Yeah, hilarious. Like, that's always the going joke in Black culture. Having the blue-eyed, blonde-haired Jesus on the wall. We all over here like, but the Bible says, bronze skin, hair of wool, and I just ain't never seen, golden hair and bright blue eyes. I'd never seen that anywhere. So what was it? You
I
know.
love it. I love it. There's been some talk and some research done
Mhm.
around the types of wisdom that she carried
Mhm.
in Jewish mysticism, and potentially carrying
Mm.
like ancient African from Egyptian roots, mystery
Mhm.
school teachings and things like that, and that
Mhm.
her power, was an eclectic gathering of all of
Mhm.
these things.
Yeah.
I wonder, yeah, how like whether whatever race she was, she definitely carried a lot of wisdom from multiple cultures.
Yeah.
And even the way that we relate to race now is very different. It wasn't really like that there.
No, it wasn't. Class was a big deal, but not race. You know, oh gosh, this world. You have to, I mean, my book, literally, I have to laugh to keep from crying. So my laughter is really just trying not to be that person. But the having
If you could have permission to be that person, this is the time
um
to be
well,
that person.
yeah, no, I'm saying that person where I don't have it in me to be the angry Black woman. I'm not that person. That's what I mean. To
Yeah.
to pound my fist and
Yeah.
all, that's not my ministry. And I believe that those people need to exist. We need those people, right? Um, but I thank you for that. I never need permission to be my authentic self.
Thank you.
And that is, what I found when you talked about lineage. I'm a big history buff. I was for 5 minutes a history teacher back when I taught geography and civics. And but I live in DC because I love history. People think it's crazy that I live here. I said, listen, it was cold in Boston. I've been to Boston. I did the Paul Revere Trail, but that was growing up. That was my second one because I was going to marry Jordan from New Kids on the Block. That was the first reason why I was going to move home. That's the truth, okay? But then the second reason was it's such great history there, right? The good, the bad, the ugly. What I say about my mother. Her name is Pam. I always say she's crazy, but she's mine, right? The
Yeah.
same as I say about America. She crazy, but she's mine.
Mm.
And I love this phrase that one of my homegirls, back when we were young in DC, now she's a whole celebrity, but she coined this term and trademarked it, says that we built this joint for free because we did, so, and we don't need to throw it in anybody's face. The thing is, people expect them from us.
Mm.
They do. They expect us to be the hateful ones and the people that are gonna,
Yeah.
tear things down. No. And I love history in general. There are some historic movies I would never watch again, like The Last King of Scotland, for example. But I love the fact that you touch on lineage because people don't talk about it enough. Now, I do believe in a lot of theology courses, especially, I have 2 degrees from Howard University, and I have a lot of friends who went to Howard Divinity School. So I know specifically they have the courses related to people of color and how that relates to African ancestry. I know that, but I never hear in any circles, scholarly circles or whatever, just about in mixed circles. Let me be clear, where it's different denominations of Christianity and different faiths talk about lineage and what each person, and specifically in this case, Mary Magdalene, what they brought to Jesus's crew. Because I say all the time, Peter was a thug. I got a friend that I love to death. He was literally we met in church, and I call him Peter to this day because he was about that life. And if you don't know what that means, Google it. Google is your friend. But I believe that Jesus rolled with the coldest gangsters in all of Jerusalem, because he made sure, one, he was protected, but he also, I believe, he made sure that, and I mean, his earthly body was protected when it
Yeah.
needed to be. But also, I believe that he had these specific people with him, including Mary Magdalene, because they had a specific skill set, to quote the incomparable Liam Neeson, and they also needed some sort of redemption, right? They needed some sort of they had things in them that he knew he could heal,
Yeah.
and Mary definitely, she had some demons in her. I mean, for all we know, Mary then killed her whole family and decided to roll with Jesus. We don't know.
No, yeah.
She could have been Lizzie Borden before we knew about that. I'm just saying that movie really traumatized me as a kid. But yeah, and I think that we should having conversations like this and having inclusive conversations like this, I
Yeah.
think provides understanding. I think that it also takes a swat at Christian nationalism that's on the rise in this country.
Yeah.
It lets people know that evangelical Christians are not Christians. I
Mm.
briefly dated a guy who doesn't believe in Jesus. So you know that we didn't date, right? But we're still in touch. And I remember I don't think I've ever evangelized to anyone. And this was like a year ago. And I just thought he has one of those cool refrigerators with the screen. And I said, you should put an Easter message on your screen. And I'm not gonna say the exact words he said, but he was like, nah, I don't do that. And I was like, do what? And he was like, what I want to put Easter on my screen for? And I'm like, because it's Easter season. I didn't understand. I didn't know he wasn't Christian.
Oh.
So I'm thinking, I'm like, I didn't see that on the app. Let me go back and look. Like, because I was like, what you mean you don't believe in Jesus?
Yeah.
My thing is I pray that God shows me my husband and he loves my Jesus because you can't love me if you don't love my Jesus. Full
Yeah.
stop. So anyway, I say all that to say, hopefully these conversations will spark maybe more conversations and build it out even more, because we do need to talk about the misogyny, because everybody knows that it was real. We love our Deborahs, right? We love our Queen Esthers, but look what they had to go through to be risen to that level. So yeah, I say all that to say the lineage and knowing where you come from and what you bring to this situation, when you know he is Lord and you still holding it together and you're still out here amongst the people preaching the gospel, I think it's amazing. I love that about her. And I've recently just learned that she was considered the first woman apostle.
Yeah, apostle to
Really?
apostles. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, and there's so much. There's just so
Mhm.
much juiciness in that. I mean, there's a reason we're going to France is because it's believed she went to France after everything that we see.
Everybody spread. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the reason we're going to places that are believed to be where she visited and things. And well, thank you. Thanks for all that you shared in that. And this is what I saw too. I saw the more I've deepened into the Magdalene conversation, at first I felt timid to talk about it because I thought, I don't know enough. I'm not like a Magdalene scholar or some kind of historian.
Right.
Like, who am I to talk about this? Then I
Mhm.
started talking about it. And what I discovered was actually this space doesn't need more gurus, doesn't need more scholars in the conversation. It needs more people who are willing to listen and be like bridge builders. And that's where I'm at. That's where my heart is right now, because I'm like, it's interesting to me. There's this kind of revolution of people connecting to Mary Magdalene, and there's not a lot of conversation about lineage, like you said. And I don't see how we can do that. I don't see how we can. It's a disservice to so many. And the thing is Mary's story belongs to all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm curious, like, yeah, how you feel. Here's a fun kind of question that I think we'll maybe wrap up with today is, if Mary's story does belong to the whole world, what do you
Mhm.
feel like it looks like to honor that story across different cultures, backgrounds, or traditions today?
Um, One, we don't talk enough as people anymore. We love this texting and video chatting, but it's like really you just trying to look at the person, right? Um, I I feel like what it looks like is a lot that's going on now. You know how the old saying goes, nothing new under the sun.
Mm,
And a lot of the issues we're facing, with women being silenced in different spaces, be it politics, business, heck, and even in education at times, um, and the fact that we're still having women first. This is the day after the Oscars, right? The first female cinematographer has won an Oscar.
wow.
And I just feel like, how many female cinematographers are out there? Even if it's 100,
Yeah.
do they suck that bad that nobody wanted to nominate? You know what I mean? Like, really? And the beauty in seeing how there wasn't a lot of divisiveness, from when she spoke and she wanted women to stand up. And it wasn't, I was excited she was Native personally, but regardless, like, her being the first woman was, and even in my community, sometimes the first is exhausting,
Yeah.
to constantly identify the first. But then, because we're so far, just in the world, just don't make no sense. But however, when you learn things from the beginning of time, as we say, right? Like, knowing about Mary Magdalene being the first, I think that this is going to be empowering for young women. It's going to be enlightening for our seasoned saints, as my community says, for older people. Because I think that, and even still in the church, in the Black church specifically, there are still a lot of unspoken rules or antiquated doctrine that is keeping women silent. Not in my particular denomination. I'm from the AME church, but we know that exists, right?
Yeah.
I remember growing up. I'm the granddaughter of two ministers. My both of my grandfathers, paternal and maternal, but I grew up with my maternal grandparents, and my grandfather was an elder in the Church of God in Christ. It was a Pentecostal faith. I never saw my grandmother wear pants.
Wow. Wow.
Never saw her wear pants. That, I mean, and it's like, women, and then later I learned that, oh, she didn't like her legs, blah blah blah. But no, she's a missionary in the church. She was an usher in the church, head usher at one point. My grandfather being assistant pastor for like 50 years almost. And again, it was just, that's just how it was.
Yeah.
And I mean, she used to be in the garden in her long skirts and dresses. And we lived in the middle of the hood in Kansas City, Missouri, and my grandfather was the only one that had a garden in the middle of the hood. He grew up in Oklahoma, so
Oh, yeah.
yeah, he grew up on a farm in Oklahoma, so we had a garden in the backyard. Yes, and so yeah, and it's funny because I even tell a story in my book about that, about my grandparents and going out to the garden picking stuff. But the misogyny, the erasure, which I love when you said that word, because it's one of those words that tastes good coming out your mouth. I have that condition where some words taste good, and but yeah, the erasure, and it's not talked about enough in a not safe space, but in a setting where everybody is comfortable. We're all on the same playing field. It's not a defensive thing. It's not, I got to defend my race, I got to defend my gender. It's really like, let's love up on each other a little bit and learn from each other, and I think that's where these conversations have the potential of going.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Beautiful. Thank you. I really appreciate that last piece that you spoke into, because even as I'm curating this retreat, that's what I'm thinking about. Like, it's a big task to bring together people who have different beliefs and things. And, even kind of to your cute story about that gentleman that you dated for a moment. Like, I expect there will be people on this retreat that don't call themselves Christian. I currently don't call myself Christian.
Mhm.
But I do love the story of Jesus, and I love Jesus, and I'm exploring what that relationship looks like after
Mhm.
leaving church and stuff. And
Mhm.
knowing that that's what we're bringing together is
Yeah.
everyone coming with their own pieces. And
Mhm.
like we don't get to do that often enough. We don't get to have safe space where you can say, my husband will have to love Jesus as much as I love Jesus in the way I do, and be celebrated by someone else who doesn't feel that way, and be, fully accepted and loved in that. Because I think at the end of the day, it's like a story like Mary's and the erasure that has existed now for several thousand years
Mhm.
come back around and give us this time where we don't have to be erased, where we can do this inner work piece, and as much as possible radiate our truth. And I think
Mhm.
what more divine thing can there be? But unfortunately, because we have so many voices and so much conditioning, I think a lot of times it results in women putting each other down or comparing, or those pieces. So
Yeah, I noticed that a lot too. Even in because I teach intercultural communication, I teach,
oh yeah,
like pop culture and things, and this is what I'm noticing even now is the and again, I'm gonna always bring in some pop culture, but even the comparison of a divinely produced and created masterpiece like the movie Sinners, and then to compare it to another film that's not even in the same genre. You
yeah,
know, this isn't a genre based thing,
yeah,
and why can't like both be great? And you just like this one better, because I'm not gonna lie, I like one over the other. And then there's this whole um stigma and all the tropes and everything in the other film, and it's like, oh my gosh, and then saying that the person who won the Oscar from that film for acting didn't deserve it because of the character they play. That's the whole point
right.
of acting, right? Not, and this is no shade to anyone else who didn't win. It's really just saying that person was leaps and bounds above, the competition. I mean, and it, for me, and I the front runners, I saw those films and I was like, no. So we need to stop doing that. We do, because I think that you're dismissing, and granted, I love the fact that he didn't show up at the Oscars personally, but us having conversations where we may not see eye to eye. I'm the queen of agreeing to disagree, honey. I
Yeah,
am. I am the queen of agreeing to disagree. We can agree to disagree, but I know what I know. And you can feel how you feel. I can feel how I feel. No
yep,
love lost. As long as you're not being offensive,
yep,
that's different. But people are so defensive, right? They don't even hear some of the things that's being said to them, because they're ready to pounce.
yeah,
And that's what I had to tell the gentleman, let me just start by saying Christian evangelicals are not Christians, because if you really are living a Christ-like life, and we all fall short of God's grace, don't get me wrong, but the things of these evangelicals, the separatism and the divisiveness and the racism and the homophobia and all the things, all the isms and obias and all this stuff, that's not Christ-like. So you can't say you're a Christian, whatever little words you put it before and after it. So that's why people who do believe, and I'm not a holy roller. I'm low key kind of dating a holy roller now, which is funny. He's so serious. Oh my gosh. But anyway, he loves my Jesus. He loves my but and I don't think it's a negative thing. I'm just not. I love my Jesus, but I cuss a little. I mean, I do, even though he looks at me like, mm-hmm. And I'm like, I can't say shit. Like, I should be able to say shit. So I just try not to cuss around. I try. I'm not perfect. And but sometimes too, it's the intent behind your words sometimes that can be offensive. So make sure your intentions are honest and pure and not cutting.
yeah.
But these conversations, I was so geeked. I was like, that's my girl. Listen, you need somebody to be with you from the mountaintop to the valley low. You call Mary Magdalene, and she gonna spread the good news as well, and don't care who believes her. because she gonna say, go see for yourself. I love that. I do. And I mean, maybe I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, but in my neurodivergent brain, that's how I see her. She's the original ride or die chick. And I've said this in different ministry settings at church, and people love it and they laugh. And people's like, I never thought about it like that. And even just saying how, Jesus was rolling with gangsters and thugs. I mean, that's the truth. Tax collectors that, it's the reason why he was flipping tables which is my favorite story in the Bible. Him flipping tables in the temple. People say Jesus never got mad. Have you flipped the table happy? I'm just saying. So hopefully, more conversations will happen. My church, I go to Reed Temple AME Church in Glendale, Maryland, where the Reverend Dr. Mark E. Whitlock Jr. is our senior pastor for 3 more weeks. But he's retiring, so I am happy for him. But at our church, we have a discipleship ministry. And the minister that's over discipleship is the Reverend Dr. Dabaye Sababu Thomas. And she's organized or came up with, because she's neurodivergent too, bless her heart. But I've known her forever. She used to teach at Howard, whole thing. But she's an older woman, and she came up with this great idea of featuring women from the Bible and asking women from the church to represent these women in the Bible and to think about how they would answer certain questions regarding what caged them. So the series is called I Know Why the Caged Sister Sings. And it's a play on Maya Angelou's book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, when she was silent after being raped, right? So this is women who have had straight, like, difficult moments in biblical history. And we are like, we get to represent them and speak as if, what would they say now? And it's every Tuesday in March. It's for Women's History Month. And I just thought it was such Reverend Dr. Thomas, she's a communications professor. So I'm not surprised at the creativity. But I'm saying this to say that there are, the Mary Magdalene Day, I think, is tomorrow. Don't quote me. I know that I'm the woman with the issue of blood. So I'm doing her next week. I know that. But that's all I know. It's been a difficult couple weeks, I told you. But yeah. And, when you think about how Mary Magdalene touches so many other women's stories during that time period of her walking with Christ.
Yeah. That
is powerful. So that's a whole nother conversation. So that's what I'm saying, that this can just, I just love I call it having babies. So when I was writing my book, it's a great segue actually. When I was writing my book, my chapters were having babies. And it actually, my editor had to be like, don't write no more about that.
Yeah.
Because my chapters were just having babies. I ended up with, like, I want to say I have 18 chapters in my book, right? And I'm just like, I thought I was going to have 10 chapters, but they just kept having babies because she was like, this chapter's too long. We got to cut it and we'll roll it over into another one. And I think that that's how this interview series is going to be for you, Melisa. I hope that you will bring in others that she touched, and other stories, throughout the New Testament, at least, where that she played a role in certain things, and going back to that lineage, and her knowing who she is, and she knew what Jesus did for her. She ain't got to broadcast what Jesus did for her. You can assume what Jesus did for her, but it wasn't broadcast like that. And I love that. Me being extroverted, people think I want to be in the front. I want the attention. No, I'm not an attention person like that. I'm really not. And I'm not going to say the word they usually say with that, but I'm not. I really don't like attention. I don't like being stared at for a long time, personally. I don't want to be an influencer. I don't like being on social media publicly like that. And I've recently had to do that because God told me to. I'm a Pisces. I'm very sensitive. Yeah. I know that about myself. So I know what my ministry is. And again, Mary Magdalene's ministry was to walk with Christ and to be there, to bear witness, and I think that was beautiful. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing, but it can touch people. And I hope that this series does. I really do.
Thank you so much, Neosho. And what a joy to get to hear, pieces of your story and your perspective. And gosh, I'm deeply touched by the way that your church integrates
Yes.
true feminism in the sense of empowering women.
Yes.
The conversation of
Mhm.
Christianity, I'm like that. I was moved to tears. That is so cool.
Oh, yeah.
The whole series y'all are doing sounds amazing. Well, tell
Yeah.
us about where people can find you. It sounds like I think you told me you're more active on Instagram. And then tell us the title of your book and a little bit about that, so our listeners can go and grab a copy of your book as we wrap up.
Nice. Okay. Please buy my book from my website, please. I say that because, outlets take percentages,
Yeah.
And I already said at the top, I don't have a full-time job, so bear with me. But my book is about my breast cancer journey. And as much as I didn't want to write it, when people would hear my story, they'd be like, oh my God, you got to write a book. So it's a multimedia experience. It's called God's Got Jokes: How I Used My Faith and God's Humor to Survive Breast Cancer.
Oh.
So it's a multimedia experience, meaning every chapter has its own QR code. You scan it as you read, and you'll see pictures and hear music from that chapter. So you'll get to see what Pam looks like, when I talk about Pam in the book, or you'll get to, see pictures from when I had my haircut party, my afro underneath here. These are faux locks. But my afro, her name is India. And there's a whole chapter called India's Journey. And I had to cut her. She had to go because she was sick, and I had to tell her that. And I had a whole haircut party. So you get to see pictures from that, and hear music that inspired my journey, right? So you'll hear everything, from Imagine Dragons album, because that saved me when I had my big surgery, when I had my reconstruction, to Anthony Brown and Group Therapy, a gospel group, and you'll also probably hear some Kool in the Gang and some, Beyonce. You got to hear Beyonce. There's God, and then there's Oprah and Beyonce. So, you got to have Beyonce in there, but also India Irie, and she has a song, Strength, Courage, and Wisdom, and how it lives inside of me, and so things like that just really helped me through my journey. And it was a difficult journey. It wasn't. I'm not gonna lie. And it wasn't more difficult than anyone else, but I'm saying it was difficult for me. And
Sure.
hopefully people will understand that it's not just about breast cancer. It's about really overcoming. I overcame homelessness. I overcame a radiation burn that never healed. Literally, they just said, we're just going to cut it off, because it's not healing. And I had it for a year. I overcame losing my biological father, my brother, 3 of my friends that helped me through chemo and surgeries.
Wow.
I had a lot of loss, but then it was like craziness. Like, I moved 5 times in 3 years. I'm like laughing at this point. Like, I got to move again, and I can't lift nothing because I just had surgery. So now I got to call up my church ministry. Y'all, yes, I'm moving again. Can you help me this weekend? And it was just, chemo and her little friend diarrhea. I almost had a bridesmaids moment. I talk about that in the book. How I had diaper rash. I lost all the hair except my eyelashes.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just, it's funny. People literally have sent me messages like, okay, I was sad and now I'm laughing. I feel bad that I'm laughing, but did you laugh on this part? That's Got Jokes. And you can get it from, like I said, my website, and it's just my name, neoshocponder.com. It's not I guess if I zoom in, neoshocponder.com. So you can see it, but I'll send you the link and you can share it with your followers. And but yeah, I have several books, and I'm more than happy, and I ship for free. So don't tell me that you want to buy my book from Jeff Bezos.
Yes.
Free shipping. I ship for free too, and I give you a little gift, and I sign it, and I emboss it, so you get some stuff from me too.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Neosho. Thanks for our listeners. Feel free to leave us some notes in the comments, and we'll be checking over the next several days to respond. And go ahead.
I'm on Instagram. You said, where can we find you, right? Instagram is my primary social media platform.
Yeah.
It's dr_ponder, PONDER. And my students had me set it up, y'all. I had no intention of being on Instagram ever. But I'm still on the Twitters. Mama name is Twitter. I'm gonna call it Twitter. So it's Ponder on that on Twitter. And I do tweet from time to time. And I'm on LinkedIn, of course. I'm looking for a job. Neosho Ponder, PhD. Yeah, I don't do TikTok, y'all. I don't. I just, yeah. I have a whole PhD in media. I got my reasons. But the cool thing is that the way crazy Meta is set up, TikTok videos go on Instagram anyway. So that's cool. So I
Yeah.
can keep up. I have to grade student assignments and they use TikTok. I'm like, make sure it's on your Instagram too, so I can grade it. So yeah, I just appreciate the opportunity. My email address is jokesbygod@gmail.com. Email me whenever you have any questions, or if you can't figure out how to order the book, I can help you do that as well.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time on the Magdalene Interview Series.
Bye.